My name is Cliff Carroll. I was actually involved. I formed a group to help fight Cape Wind back in 2003, but we were the little guys we did things like do boat protests at Greenpeace. We had a protest out at the Test Tower. The folks from Nantucket, I live in West Barnstable on a hill. And last night I look out and I see 5 blinking lights over 30 miles away. And that's those new turbines. So with that being said, I'm going to make this the fastest slideshow you've ever seen because I'm not going to mess with Suzanne, who I'm very grateful to. Okay, what we have here is Cape Cod has what's called a sole source aquifer. We basically have an underground ocean that supplies all our drinking water. Cape Cod Aquifer provides 100% of our drinking water. It doesn't have any town boundaries. There are 3 different aquifers that are what they call lenses that go to the Cape. But the main one that we're in here, and you can see the locus right in the middle, this is where they're going to be putting the transformer platforms. And that is called the Sagamore Lens, which goes all the way from the canal all the way down to Dennis, Harwich town line. I'm going to blow through these real quick, but again, just keep your eye on the middle of the map. This is a map, and this I got from BOEM. This wasn't even a public document. And what's going on here is very important to my talk. I'm only going to talk today about aquifer transformers and the onshore nightmare that the offshore wind is creating. What you have here is you have 3 different objects. On your right-hand side is kind of a teal square. That's the Park City Wind, which the EFSB just approved. The federal government pretty much drove it down our throat. We just discovered probably about 3 weeks before the EFSB approved this project that they told us for a while there's going to be about 60,000 gallons of oil in it. Then they told us there's going to be about 65. And then the EFSB hearing comes out, and about 3 days before that, they disclose there's going to be 125,000 gallons of transformer oil in that. And you'll see in a minute, this is in a well zone. In addition to that, there's 45,000 gallons of what's called SF6 gas. It's used to cool. EPA says that SF6 gas is one of the deadliest atmospheric poisoning gases known to the EPA. It is 23,500 times more damaging to the atmosphere than CO2. And once it's released, it stays in the atmosphere for 3,500 years. They're using that. They never talk about it. The middle yellow blue, that's Eversource, by the way. Everybody keeps talking about Avangrid. We got to keep an eye on Eversource. They're kind of partnered up, and they're all working behind the scene. This is going to be pretty much the doubling of the size of an existing transformer at Oak Street. They're taking it from about 25,000 gallons up to about 70,000 gallons. And as Adam said, they're increasing the voltage from 345 kilovolts to 115 kilovolts. The large blue object on the left here is what was one of their best kept secrets, and it's about to become one of their worst kept secrets. That's a 28-acre transformer substation site that they have under agreement with an option to purchase. They've never disclosed it publicly. They've been running through the BOEM, which is the federal side of the process now, for looks like about 2 years without really coming into town discussing it. Anybody that's from here in the Cape area is familiar with the Kmart Plaza. That's about 26 acres. This site is 28 acres, and it's right where the fire tower is on the side of the Mid-Cape Highway and one of the highest points of land on the Cape. Let me just move on. All these red lines indicate well zones, well protection zones, aquifer protection zones. The black squares that I've drawn, they're approximate, but they're pretty accurate. To the right, you have the Park City substation, 125,000 gallons. The middle one is going up to about 70,000 gallons that we're aware of. And then that big black one with the little dot signifies the fire tower. That's 28 acres. If you go to scale with that particular, looking at the ones they have disclosed, there's probably going to be 150 to 200,000 gallons of oil on that. The best part of it is if you look to the upper left-hand corner, you can see kind of a different green. That's called the Bridge Creek Conservation Area. And I'm going to get to that in a minute. Big problem that we have. Transformers overheat, they ignite, they explode. Back in June in Sydney, Australia, there was a transformer substation that caught on fire. 60 firefighters reported to it. They were not allowed to go anywhere near the site. That fire burned for 3 days. The transformers at Oak Street, again, contain just short of 70,000 gallons over our sole source aquifer, 125,000 gallons over the Clay Hill transformer, and maybe 150,000 to 200,000 gallons that's going to be estimated at the fire tower. These are all, for anybody that's not familiar with it, they're all within about 1 mile. They're at the top of that aquifer at the highest point. Now I'm really going to fly through these slides. This is the transformer. This is another transformer. This isn't even the Australian one. Just for an idea and cleanup, and I'm just putting this in as a note. This is an oil tank that I took out of a piece of property a couple of years ago. This is the Barnstable Post Office down on Route 6A in Barnstable Village. In the middle of buying that property, what it turned out is there was a gas station there in 1915 that was torn down, and then this building got built. Nobody remembered the gas station. So when we did the underground radar on it, I found what looked like a submarine on the radar at the front door of the post office. That little cleanup that you see right there turned into a 9-month cleanup and almost $250,000 just for that little spot. This is the floor plan, or basically the plan for the transformer substation. It's going to be located at the Knights Inn Motel on the edge of Wequacket Lake, in the middle of one of those aquifer protection and well zones I showed you. These pieces of machinery right here are what contains 125,000 gallons of oil in the SF6 gas. This is an aerial drone shot. That hotel that you see in the bottom of the picture, that's only half of the site. They're purchasing that hotel. They're turning that into a 10-acre transformer substation. It's going to go all the way down to the wires that you see down below there. Again, right dead center in our aquifer protection zone on the edge of Wequacket Lake. This is the Oak Street substation. They're in the middle of doubling to tripling it. Again, one of the highest points of land in between the two substation sites. You can see the Centerville water tower there that supplies most of the water, Wequacket Lake in the distance. This is the Clay Hill fire tower that a lot of you see when you drive up the Mid-Cape Highway coming from Burger King. All that land in the back, 28 acres. Again, this site is larger than the Kmart Plaza, the whole plaza. Estimated between 100 and 200,000 gallons. Now, what's important about this is up to your left-hand side again. The town of Barnstable did a study about 2 years ago. This is a document from the West Barnstable Water Commissioners, and again, I'll make this very quick. This is really important. They had to do a study because back in 2019, the town of Hyannis, the village of Hyannis, was running 1.87 million gallons per day short on their well water. They had to shut wells off because of the fire school and the contaminants of the PFAS. And they estimated in the same report that by 2040, if the town doesn't find new sources of water, they're going to be 3.23 million gallons per day short on supplying water. If I go to the bottom of this where it's bolded, they went through 9 different sites, 7 different sites, 9 different wells. The conclusion was sites were evaluated and ranked based on pump yield, water quality. The Bridge Street Conservation Area, which is that spot up on the left, which is only a half a mile from this 28-acre substation, was 10 times greater than any other site on the yield. This is the substation here that we were talking about off of the backside of Martha's Vineyard. This substation is 590 feet tall, contains almost 157,000 gallons of oil. Federal government requires that the developer do an oil spill fatality chart. It's a federal regulation. This is the cover. It's 179 pages. They made them map what direction the oil is going to go in, and depending on what time of the year and the wind direction. Then the next thing they did, probability that the oil is going to reach land masses. As you can see here, the green line that runs along the edge of the Cape surrounds Martha's Vineyard, surrounds Nantucket. That's the probability and the spots that'll get hit in that particular time of year. And it also goes all the way down to Block Island. A quick quiz, and I'll answer it so I don't get shot. Who is protecting our sole source aquifer, public water supply, from the risks presented by the hundreds of thousands of gallons of wind farm transformer oil? The answer is not the EPA. The EPA is refusing to do water studies. They're refusing to enforce the Clean Waters Act. They're refusing to do the Sole Source Aquifer Act, and they're claiming that this project, because the project is not receiving federal funding. Boom, they're not doing it. They required the oil spill mapping. On the federal side, they do not require cover us on the state side. Massachusetts DEP, they also have refused to enforce the protection of the Sole Source Aquifer. In fact, Avangrid's Vice President of Development is the former commissioner of the Massachusetts DEP. Not Cape Cod Commission. They also refused the call to map out the well fields or evaluate the contamination, so they're not protecting us. Not the Cape Cod delegation, with the exception of the incredible efforts of State Rep Steve Zaros. Every other rep, to my knowledge, is supporting this project. There were letters written in to the EFSB, and what ended up happening, and this is the last slide, by the way, none of the Cape Cod delegation of state reps or senators have responded to calls to request that the EPA, the DEP mapping of the growing risks of these transformers present to the aquifer. They supported the Energy Facility Siting Board overriding the town of Barnstable's objections on bonding to protect ourselves, which now there's no federal bonding on decommissioning. Now we have no bonding as a town. Zoning, building a transformer in residential zoning, and the request for intervenor status, so that they basically reduced the town of Barnstable to the power of one individual. As Peter Hansen, who's his 18th year as water commissioner for Com District, constantly asks, where is the outrage? And last slide. We only have one sole source aquifer. It is not renewable. Thank you for listening.